All right, we're back. I think we're going to start setting some values or something. Is that right?
Yes, we're going to take a look at how to put some data onto a page and then click a button to submit that data.
Cool.
For this example, we're going to go to the AutoHotkey forums, and we're going to look at this search box here as a prime target for automation with this method. So we're going to start by grabbing our AutoHotkey community window, or sorry, tab.
Yeah, right.
And because the default match mode here is starts with,
right,
it will grab the right tab even if maybe, I only need to type the start of the tab. On some sites, every page will have the same start. The forum doesn't appear to be that way. So it will work on this page, but it might not work on the next page it takes us to. So we'll see how this goes. First thing we will want to do is take a look at our page structure. I've right-clicked and hit Inspect on that box. And that's popped up our DevTools here with that element selected in the HTML. You'll see here, it's an input tag with an ID keywords. And if we go to copy its JS path, we'll see that that pops out a query selector, pound keywords. That will uniquely identify that input box, and so it's very simple to get to. So just looking at the JavaScript here, we can run that and we'll get the input from the HTML, and we can use the .value attribute of that to set some text into that box. So let's set it to Chrome.ahk because I want to find that project on the forum. And so that's how we're going to target and fill in text on that from JavaScript and then from AutoHotkey. So we're going to go back to our page.evaluate method and give it that JavaScript. And here we see doesn't like the quotes again. So we'll handle that here by changing the double quotes to single quotes.
Because JavaScript allows for you to have,
right.
I was listening. I'm getting
In JavaScript, you can mark text using single quotes, and it won't mess up your AutoHotkey quotes for that.
And it's also important for people that are used to using AutoHotkey is here, you have the values equal Chrome, not colon equal, because you're sending JavaScript.
Right.
Yeah.
In JavaScript, the single equal assignment always does an expression. You'll always want quotes around text. You can do math in it just fine. Whereas in AutoHotkey, you need that colon there. But it's not like that in JavaScript. So everything inside the evaluate is going to need to use JavaScript syntax.
Right.
A lot of people ask me, I want to do browser automation, but I don't want to know any of the JavaScript. I just want to use the AutoHotkey code.
Right.
And even when you're writing AutoHotkey code, so much of it is a one-to-one analog to the JavaScript that you're learning the JavaScript anyway.
Yeah. Well, my feeble attempt, years ago when I first played with this, was to simplify that and just I wrote this part, but I used variables, and I said, okay, what's your query selector thing, and then what's your value, because I get how it's confusing. I had a problem remembering this syntax just because I was so ingrained with the other way. But yeah, I understood. Oh, you're sending JavaScript, so it can't be what we're used to.
Yeah, it certainly can get confusing. Controlling HTML from JavaScript, from AutoHotkey, from maybe you're using some macro launcher to run your AutoHotkey script. It's just got layers on layers.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and run this from our AutoHotkey to make sure that it acts the same way as the JavaScript console. And it does. Now over in our Chrome window, that box has been populated. We'll rerun that script, and it populates every time. So now that we've got that working, let's take a look at that button. We see here in the HTML that the button is right next to the input. But if your page has a button somewhere else that you need to click, you can go back to this, select an element in the page, and click on it. Or you can just right-click the button and hit inspect.
Right.
And so now that we've got our button here, we can do that same process again. Copy JS path. We'll clear out our console here. And we run that JavaScript code, and it does indeed find our button. And we want to simulate a click onto this button. So JavaScript offers a function for that called click. And when we call that, it triggers the click action of that button.
Yep.
Because I had cleared this box out, it just took us to the search page. But if we combine that
Right.
with the code for setting the contents of that search box.
Would you, is it similar in AutoHotkey that like, hey, between these two things, you don't really need to sleep. It'll be fine in the speed?
Yes. Whenever you run an evaluate command, it will wait for the JavaScript to complete before continuing.
Great.
Although some users have run into edge cases where that functionality didn't work. If you think that's happening to you, check the forum, see if anyone's reported it. I know there are some solutions floating around.
Sure.
So just something to keep in mind. So let's try running this now with both setting the value and clicking the button. And it looks like it worked. It's searching for both Chrome and AHK. Our forum search is great that way.
Right.
Actually, I think it is searching for Chrome.ahk. It just says Chrome AHK.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
But you see here,
Yeah.
all sorts of talk about Chrome.ahk.
Right.
So it looks like that's working. Sometimes what you want to input won't always be just a static string. And you might be tempted to try to reference a variable here using this %sign syntax. And while that works in some places in AutoHotkey, it won't work here. You'll need to use the expression syntax. And what that means is when you're calling a function, everything inside these parentheses is an expression. And in an expression, you're not just assigning text. You're doing math, or you're making function calls, or sometimes you're referencing variables. And so because what's between here is an expression, if you want to get to a variable, you just write the variable name. So here, we could put our entire JavaScript text into a plain text variable assignment and evaluate that by just referencing the variable name. But if you want your variable to just have this text here,
Right.
You can do that by you put quotes around your bit of JavaScript, and then you put another set of quotes
To break it.
inside your JavaScript single quotes.
Right. Yeah, I honestly remember playing with this, and it's been a while for me too. But I remember getting hung up here for a while of like, how do I put a variable in there? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and the reason this works is AutoHotkey, when it goes through this line, splits everything up. It'll split this and say, oh, this is the name of a function, and it'll see all this, and it says, that's the data you want to give to the function.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it looks inside the parentheses, and it sees this quote. It says, oh, this is some text. And so it saves that as one piece of text. And then it moves on and says, oh, this is a variable.
Right.
And so it appends the variable to that text. And it says, this is some more text.
Oh, interesting.
And then it sticks the last bit on. So it kind of builds it sequentially from left to right.
Uh-huh.
So rather than in a plain text assignment where AutoHotkey would take the full text and then replace bits of it, this goes left to right, piece by piece, and sticks it together.
Hmm. And that's because it's a string, or it's because it's inside of a function?
It's because it's an expression.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right.
And that's really one of the more fundamental differences between doing this kind of work in an expression versus doing it in plain text assignment. Here you use percent signs, and it replaces that with the variable content. Whereas here, you just end your string and then use a variable and then start a new string.
But maybe I was misunderstanding this. And I don't. The line numbers aren't up there, but the line up above. There you go. Line 12. I thought when you used just the equal sign, you were telling AutoHotkey to treat this as an expression. That's not the case?
No. The colon equals is the expression assignment mode. And so when you're in expression assignment mode, you can do math.
Sure,
so let me pop up another window here.
Yeah.
And now you can see the variable text.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And you can do math because it's in an expression. But with just a single equal here on line 4, now it's plain text mode. So instead of reading this as math,
okay,
it reads as text.
Yeah, all right. I should have logic that, because the main time I use that is when, especially inside my string, I have double quotes inside the string. But that, if I had thought it through, that would make sense of like, no, you're saying use whatever to the right as text, and that's why I can have those double quotes wherever I want.
Right.
Something else is saying use it as a text. Okay, thank you.
So if we run this now, it should do a search on the forum for, for 4.
Right.
We'll run that. And it's gone and found 13,000 matches for the number 4, a very popular number.
It seems kind of low, actually. But anyway.
Well, let's try 5 and see if 5 has more. See if 5 has more matches. We've reached a rate limit here.
It's all right. Let's
wait our 8 seconds here.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big problems with doing this kind of automation on someone else's site.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of measures they might have against botting. Like, especially in the case of a forum, they don't want people to just run a script that comes and spams the forum.
Right. Yeah, and we don't either, right? We're just using this as an example because it's convenient. But yeah, please don't.
So while you could use Chrome.ahk to browse to the forum and
then start working, doing whatever, right?
You'll probably find a lot of roadblocks like this one, either on our forum or on anyone else's site. You might be using the site normally your entire life, and then when you start getting code involved, it starts popping up CAPTCHAs everywhere.
No.
That's really, there's been a lot of effort gone into preventing automation of things people don't want to be automated. And sites get very good at looking like a normal site to a user and then looking like an impenetrable fortress to code.
Good to know.
It looks like...
Do we have any other things for this session on...
Yes. One more note.
Okay.
When you do this, embedding a variable into your JavaScript, if that variable contains a single quote or a few other special characters, JavaScript will interpret that as code instead of as text. It'll see the apostrophe and say, oh, that's the end of the thing you wanted to set to the value. The rest of this is code.
Can we do a quick example so I can better explain my question? So up on there, put that like don't, say it says don't. If we know that apostrophe single quote is going to mess it up, can we escape it with a JavaScript escape thing?
You sure can. I don't know if there are any implementations of this in AutoHotkey, but
we could run it through whatever, and it'll automatically do that for us. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It'll replace special characters with so-called escape sequences.
Right.
That's code that tells JavaScript, instead of making this the end of the text, make it an actual apostrophe.
Make the thing following it, yeah.
Or let's say you have some multi-line text.
Yeah.
It'll replace those extra lines with escape sequences that mean treat this as a new line, not as the start of some new code.
Right.
I think there might be an implementation of this somewhere on the forum.
No worries. Yeah.
I should post one.
It just helps. I know you had a different approach you were going for, but this gives us a short-term solution, that at least we have a workaround to make it work.
Yeah. There are ways through the Chrome Developer Tools protocol to set values without even touching the JavaScript. But as Joe and I discovered in like an hour-long debugging session, it's very difficult to use. Whereas something like this, while it's not as elegant, so to speak, is so much easier, and in almost all cases will work just as well, as long as you do this string escaping.
Right. Cool. Okay, are we good?
Yep.